Hi, Dan Brosz here with another episode of Collection Spotlight. Now we're continuing our Halloween series. This is the second episode. The first episode we talked about James Bell's Bible. This episode we're going to be talking about infamous South Dakota gangster. Before we get to the artifact, I just want to remind everyone that the nature of what I'll be talking about can be a little graphic and may not be appropriate for the younger viewers. Today I'm going to be talking about South Dakota's infamous gangster, Verne Miller. He was involved in the underworld in the late 1920s, early 1930s, most famous for his involvement in the Kansas City Massacre in 1933. Later that year, he met his sudden and very violent death in the outskirts of Detroit. Now, Miller was a pretty bad dude, but he didn't start that way. He was born in 1896. He was raised in a small town in rural county. He joined the military and went and fought in World War I, where he was wounded twice, gassed once. Came back to South Dakota in 1919 after being honorably discharged. He was a war hero. He became a police officer in the town of Huron in 1919, became sheriff in 1921, and by all accounts he was a very effective and popular lawman. But he did have a reputation of having somewhat of an itchy trigger finger. Now, his involvement in crime started in 1922 while he was still sheriff. He was arrested and convicted of embezzlement from the county and served 18 months in the state penitentiary. After Miller's release from prison, he dove headfirst into the world of crime. Prohibition began across the country in 1920, and bootlegging was a risky yet could be profitable industry, and Miller became involved in that. He later became involved in bank robberies and shootings. He started running with some very well-known gangsters, including being involved in Al Capone's syndicate out of Chicago, very famous gang, the Holden Keating gang out of St. Paul, in which Machine Gun Kelly was also a member. In 1933, he really gained national fame for being the mastermind behind the Kansas City Massacre, which occurred on June 17th. Miller, Pretty Boy Floyd, and Adam Ricchetti were planning on busting out their friend Frank Jelly Nash from federal custody in front of Union Station. He was being transported to Kansas City by train. So they laid in wait outside the train station, and when Nash and the federal agents appeared, Miller and his boys opened fire. Things didn't go right though, and in the process, in the gunfight, Nash ended up getting killed along with 2 Kansas City police officers, 2 federal agents, and the chief of police from McAlester, Oklahoma. Now, after the massacre, Miller jumped to the top of the list of America's Most Wanted. So after Miller made the top of the Most Wanted list, he had to go on the run. However, he was still involved in crime. Now that caught up to him in November 1933, where his corpse was discovered alongside the road, stripped down, and beaten to a bloody pulp, thus ending the interesting but violent life of Verne Miller. Now he was shipped back to South Dakota for his funeral in White Lake, and he is buried now in Huron. So I suppose y'all are asking, what in the world is this in front of me? Well, this is the box that Miller's body was sent back to South Dakota in from Detroit. It's just a plain plastic resin box with a wooden bottom, pretty nondescript, for a fascinating man. Thanks for joining us.